Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Zeracol Hakathos, aka Zero, with Demonosophy and Beyond. And today I'm going to do a book review on The Abyss by Leo Holmes. This is what the book looks like. Okay. But I'm also going to couple that with talking about my journey through the abyss. Okay, before I get into all this, I would just like to thank Lilith for taking a lead role in my spiritual ascent, taking interest in me as a person, and introducing me to keys to unlocking some next level soul alchemy. I would also like to thank Hecate, who played a big part as my therapist during my journey and also supported me with my magic. Both of them have played a very important part in my life, my spiritual life, as well as just my life in general. So, let's get to it. When I was reading this book, the author, in the disclaimer, he describes his book as an attempt to discuss the ordeal of the abyss with all its implications. Okay. So, for the most part, this book was a very dry read, but it had interesting points that I like to bring out. I'm only going to go over the highlights. When I was going through the abyss and shit started popping off, I really needed some information on how my journey could be. So I found this book, purchased it, read through it, and I feel like it did help me. And I'm going to get into why. So this book attempts to explain what the abyss is, what leads up to it, and how to cope during the abyssal journey, which is very useful. It's not a grimoire. It's more of an informative book. So, according to the book, what is the abyss? Well, this is a quote. It's an extremely turbulent and unmotivating time that calls for introspection, meditation, and reevaluation. So during this time, Choronzon devours the magician and the ego is torn apart. And this is a very uncomfortable time of life. On an astrological comparison, the book compares it to Uranus, the planet of breakthroughs and revolutions, and also calls it the Awakener. Personally, it feels like home, which we'll cover later on in this video as to why. So, what leads up to the abyssal journey? Well, one thing that resonated with me that the book said is that you meet mentors and you gain supernatural aid, mainly in the form of maternal figures. Now, for me, these maternal figures were Lilith and Hecate. There are triggers that send you into abyssal mode. And one of these is having your primal identity suppressed and then struggling to have it resurface later on in life. Grief, stress, depression, substance abuse, or a near-death experience can also trigger an abyssal journey. Personally, for me, the world's darkness robbed me of my fear of the abyssal crossing. Okay, we went through COVID, people started getting dumber. The quality of life on the surface just went down. So I really didn't care about what I was going to go through in the abyss. So what do you encounter in the abyss? From my point of view, you encounter extremely destructive entities that test your resolve and also teach you. Everything in the abyss is rough around the edges. When I was doing invocations of Abyssal Spirits, most of the time it was very, very painful. I felt on many occasions that my soul essence, my being, just wanted to leave my body, and it was painful because it was like it was trying to escape from my chest and just burst out of me. When it comes to the destructive entities that test your resolve and teach you, one of the examples of the Abyssal Spirits is Dahaka, which is a entity that's found in Zoroastrian lore. He is known as the son of Ahriman, and I believe I did do a video on him before. Invoking him was extremely painful the first 6 times. The 7th time we were cool. And he introduced me to a state that I could activate within myself, which he called the eternal happiness. And this was a state where no external stimuli could affect you internally. So what you chose to feel was always going to be your choice. If you wanted to be happy, you made yourself happy, and nothing could change that. If you wanted to be sad or depressed, that's because you chose to be sad or depressed. And this state is very, very hard to achieve. It's not something that I can do all the time, but it is very useful. Let's see. What you also encounter in the abyss are multiple vampiric beings. There's a lot. I can't even count how many vampiric beings that I've encountered in the abyss. And then you also encounter shadow aspects of yourself. And these are the things that you suppress, the dark thoughts, the dark feelings, the part of you that you may consider bad or evil or impure. And you have to deal with all of these things, as well as what you go through in your life in the outside world. So the book, thankfully, gives us a couple of things that we can do in order to manage and cope with our abyssal crossing. And a few of those things are acknowledging your weakness. When you acknowledge your weaknesses, you can work on fixing them. And your cross the abyss helps you to focus on these things and helps you to patch these up. It says that you should also remain secluded. Now, even though it tells you these things, like some of these things come naturally. Okay, when I was in the abyss, I didn't want to have anything to do with anything. I just wanted to be by myself. I wanted to be in a cocoon until everything was over. It says to refrain from TV and social media. And I think this is because there's a lot of negativity in TV, a lot of negativity and toxicity in social media. And you don't want to expose yourself to extra negativity while going through the abyss. I've known people who have done the abyssal crossing, and they want to commit suicide, during it. They feel extremely depressed, extremely down. Um, Sometimes they feel bad about themselves, and you don't want that extra load from TV, social media, or anything else that would expose you to those types of things. It says to continue to study, and this is very important because while I was going through the abyss, I found a book on the abyss, and that helped me greatly. Uh, Invoke abyssal entities. Now, this is important because even though they can make things difficult, or it may seem that they're making things difficult, they can also make things easier because they've been dwelling in the abyss for who knows how long. They've perfected getting through the abyss and coping with whatever's in the abyss and living there. So if you make nice with these entities, because they're not just dangerous, they're not purely savage. They may appear savage and they may feel very savage. But once you cultivate a relationship with these entities, they help you get through this abyssal crossing. Accept suffering as necessary for growth. And it also says to avoid unnecessary suffering. Okay, so we know, like in life, there's things called growing pains. When we have these pains, we know that we're about to go through a growth spurt. We know that we're about to get bigger. We know we're about to become better. And this abyssal crossing is the same way. The pain is there for a reason. But we don't want to expose ourselves to unnecessary pain because it would be detrimental to our evolution. Avoid unnecessary interaction with people. I think this doesn't really need to be mentioned. You don't want to do this anyway in your life, in any part of your life, but people are very toxic. Society is very toxic. People these days are extremely stupid in their thinking. They're illogical. And you don't want to submit yourself to that because that will only hinder your evolution. And right now, when you're going through the abyssal journey, you're in a state of extreme weakness. Like you're very vulnerable. And so you don't want to make yourself vulnerable to anything that would hinder your evolution or trigger, suicidal ideations and cause you to fail your journey. The book continues to say that it would help in your journey if you meditate. Meditating helps you to think about what you're going through, analyze it, process it, and see where you need to fix things in your life or help to reveal why you're going through certain things in your life. And this is something that we should all, as practitioners, be doing anyway. It says abstain from consumerism. When you abstain from consumerism, like a lot of people, when they go through depression or dark times, sometimes they spend a lot of money thinking that having material things will make them happy or distract them. Well, one, you don't want distractions from your spiritual evolution. You want to be attentive and vigilant and understand what's going on, and be focused on getting better as a person. So, also, when you are depressed, a lot of us tend to overspend. So, going into financial debt would actually make your situation worse, which is something that you don't want to do. And then it also says remain silent. And we want to remain silent because, once again, if we tell people about our experiences, especially when it comes to magic, people see it as very taboo. They're very toxic. They're not very encouraging for the most part. Family members and friends may not understand what you're going through because they're not going through it. They've never been through it. And so, even though they may want to help, they can actually make things worse. So, keep your mouth shut. So, I'm going to talk more about. I want to talk more about my personal crossing and what happened. Um, Around October, Lilith initiated me into the abyss. She gave me the steps, which are also listed in the last part of my book. And while I was going through the abyss, I caught COVID for the first time. When COVID first became a thing, everybody was getting sick except for me. But I got sick this time. I had financial problems that I'm still recovering from. I lost touch with friends and family. And by lost touch, it doesn't mean that I stopped talking to them or stopped dealing with them. It's just that I was unable to relate with them, unable to connect on a deeper level with them. They were there. I acknowledged them. I tried to check up on them every once in a while to make sure I didn't lose my real friends, because I do care about my friends and family. But there was just something that, made me want to just be by myself, not hang out with people, not really have lengthy conversations with them. I lived my life in a dream state. I felt like nothing was real. And to a point, things aren't real. Everything is a facade. Everything is fake. But it felt like I was just walking through water, going on autopilot and kind of just watching myself. I suffered from insanity multiple times. And this is something that happens on a regular basis when you are experiencing new knowledge, or if you are leveling up, so to speak. Your brain tries to process what's going on. Your spirit tries to process what's going on. The mundane part of you kind of fights back and says, "No, this isn't real. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't be this. You can't be that." And so this causes just a lot of confusion, a lot of disorientation. There were times when it was hard to think, and I couldn't string logical sentences in my head. All I could do was tell myself who I was, repeat my name over and over again, and tell myself that I had things to do on this plane of existence. I had to come back. And even that was a struggle, to tell myself that, to, have those thoughts. I always felt lethargic. I was always tired. Didn't matter how much sleep I got. Didn't matter how much caffeine I drank. It didn't matter, if I exercised. You feel pumped up after exercising. You feel good. You feel energized. None of that was working. I became unmotivated. For a long time, I could not, for the life of me, make a video. It was very hard to read. It was very hard to enjoy the things that I usually do. And, but when I was able to do things, the positive side of it is that my magic was getting more potent while going through this abyssal crossing. And from what the book talks about, this isn't a usual thing. It says that when people go through the abyssal crossing, they may try to perform magic and it just doesn't work. No matter how hard you try, no matter who you appeal to. But, excuse me, it seems like the opposite happened for me. So, why did crossing the abyss feel like coming home for me? Well, when I first passed the test with Karanzan, I was welcomed by Abaddon, who gave me citizenship in the abyss. And while he was doing that, I was also thrown a welcoming party. I was given a job in the abyss. There was something to do. I was invited to multiple demonic orgies. Multiple. Like, they throw parties all the time. I was treated with respect by the abyssal demons. And this was important for me. Even though they were rough around the edges, even though dealing with their energy during invocation was painful, I don't feel like that they were attacking me. I don't feel like they were malevolent. And when I got to know these entities, sometimes we actually just kicked back and just talked. Just talked. There was no lesson there. There was no trickery or anything. And I don't feel like any of the abyssal spirits I came upon were trying to trick me. But they did have hard lessons that they needed to teach and I needed to learn. I was given magical upgrades. During my abyssal journey, there were a lot of things that were going on with my subconscious. Now, I was aware that my subconscious was being talked to by different entities, but I wasn't aware of exactly what was being said and what transpired overall. But I know that these, I guess, upgrades were not negative. Everything was towards my evolution. It was positive. I was shown paradise-like environments in demonic realms. Now, this is very significant because, a lot of people say that the demonic realms, are like hell and everything is ugly. Everything is, you hear torture and screaming in the background and all kinds of crazy stuff. And that's not true. There are a lot of parts of, I guess, like the abyss or the realms around it that look like the natural wonders of the earth. There are trees, there's fields, there's mountains, there's rivers, there's even some kind of sunlight. Who knows where that comes from, but it's there. It's not as bright as our sun, but there is, sunlight. I received lessons that no book or human could teach. I feel like books and talking to people can only get you so far. They get you in the door, but when you achieve real gnosis, when you achieve genuine contact with the spirits, they give you knowledge that is not going to be on this plane of existence. And that's why it's so important to establish relationships with the different spirits, because they see and they know things and they've been around for a long time. And there is a lot of information that used to be around that was either destroyed, suppressed, or kept a secret. And these entities know those different things. So that was one of the benefits of going through my abyssal journey. And the last was I was invited to return to the abyss as my second home without any trials or necessarily being bothered by any demons. And this is important because it allows me to continue to tap into the magic of the abyss. It allows me to continue to speak to these entities, because some of them are actually chained up and some of them are just roaming around free. And the only way that you can access the ones that are chained up are going into the abyss. So that was a huge, huge boon for me. So in the end, my crossing made me a more effective sorcerer. It made me more empathetic towards those suffering, because even though I knew COVID was a serious thing, I couldn't understand people who suffered through that until I suffered through it. Even though, I am poor, going through financial hardship to the point where you're having to choose whether to eat or to put gas in your car to go to work. I had never really been through something like that. So I was able to learn to empathize with people who are in that position where they have to make that choice on a regular basis. It helped me become my true self no matter what. And by that, it's like there's no fakery within me. There's no trying to decide whether to lie to people or to be my real self. I just am my real self. And I don't give a damn about what other people think. And I'm not going to. I'm never, ever going back. And I feel like that is a positive in my life, because when you are your true self and when you're truthful all the time, the fake people, the liars, they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to know the truth. So they don't hang around you. And you start getting more genuine people gravitating towards you. Crossing the abyss led me to an opportunity for healthy love. I'm not going to go into that because that's personal, but that's also another positive thing in my life. In my past, a lot of my relationships were toxic. I do have abandonment issues, but this opportunity gave me a chance to let go of all those things and for once have faith in an individual that I chose to be my partner. Crossing the abyss gave me a place of sanctuary from this asinine world. And that's very important, because when you are exposed to all the nonsense that's going on within the media, within society on a regular basis, it takes a mental toll on you. And today we're surrounded by it. We're surrounded by the constant fear that the media puts into people, the constant fear of our mortality, due mostly to COVID, but just in general, we're introduced to all kinds of nonsense. There are all kinds of people who are um, social media and YouTube influencers who think that they know things and they're just idiots talking out their asses. But a lot of people embrace these ideologies that go nowhere. And sometimes you just need a break from all that, because you can't be fighting these influences 24/7 without it taking a negative toll. Like, we're not fortresses, we crack. So sometimes we need to rest. And the abyss is where I go to rest. So, even though I found a lot of this book very hard to read, very hard to get through, I'm grateful that I do have it for reference, because the parts that I did like did help me. The highlights that I gave to you helped me get through my journey and understand it better, so that I could adapt and survive. And if any of you choose to go through the abyss, I hope that this video helps. I hope that if you choose to purchase this book, that the book also helps you. And so, for that reason alone, I'm giving it a thumbs up. Once again, I would like to encourage you to not just take my word for things. Everybody's path is going to be different. But also experience things on your own. If you like the things I say about books, read the books for yourself. Get your own understanding of the books. If you hear about a subject of magic that I talk about, seek it out. Get your own understanding of that aspect of magic. Definitely, if you have a chance, contact Lilith. All the negative things that they say about her are not true. She's very loving. She's very patient. As long as you're respectful, as long as you are genuinely seeking spiritual evolution and you're willing to take steps towards it, she will be one of the best mentors you will ever have. If you are looking for transformation in your life, if you're looking for spiritual evolution, also seek out Hecate. Hecate has done me a world of good. Both of these entities, when you ask them for something, they give it to you. If they don't give it to you, that means that you are not ready and they're looking out for you. So, with that said, I hope that everyone is doing well. I hope that your magic is on point. I hope you're evolving. And I will talk to you later.